Most people think if a raised bed looks rustic, solid, and garden safe, then it probably is. But some of the most common raised bed materials can slowly release chemicals, metals, or residues right into the soil where you're growing lettuce, carrots, tomatoes, and herbs. And number 3 on this list is the one I would stop using immediately because people still build beds with it thinking it's an old-school bargain when it can create a mess that lasts for years. I've also got a bonus tip at the end that can help you choose safer bed materials without blowing your whole garden budget. Hey, Rootkeeper, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to The Rootkeeper, the channel where we learn how to grow smarter, spend less, and build gardens that actually last instead of creating problems we regret later. I wanted to cover this one because raised beds are supposed to give us more control, better soil, and cleaner food. And honestly, that whole idea falls apart if the frame itself is the contamination source. If you're trying to grow food that's actually worth eating and worth the work, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. And turn on notifications because I put out practical garden advice that helps you avoid expensive mistakes and build a setup you can trust. It's free and it takes 1 second. Now, quick reality check before we start. Leaching is one of those words people throw around loosely. Not every material dumps huge amounts of toxins overnight. Usually, it's slower than that. It depends on moisture, heat, soil pH, age of the material, and what it was treated with in the first place. That matters. But if you're growing food in the same bed season after season, even low-level contamination can become a real concern over time, especially with root crops and leafy greens. That's the gap here. People think about compost, fertilizer, and seed quality, but not the walls of the bed. All right, let's get into it. Starting with number 7. Number 7 is painted lumber, the colorful cover-up. A lot of people build raised beds out of old painted boards because they're cheap, already cut, and sitting in the garage or behind the shed. I get the temptation. A fresh coat can make it look clean and intentional, but the issue is what's under that paint, and what kind of paint was used over the years. Older boards, especially anything pre-1978, may have lead-based paint, and that's a hard no anywhere near food. Even newer exterior paints can flake, chip, and break down in constant sun and moisture. Here's what most people miss. Once paint starts cracking on the soil-facing side, those bits don't disappear. They drop right into the bed. If you're growing spinach 8 inches away from it, that matters. Saving $40 on lumber is not worth contaminating a bed you plan to use for 5 or 10 years, but if you think that's risky, wait until you see number 6. This next one gets sold as rugged and long-lasting, and that durability comes with baggage. Number 6 is railroad ties, the old toxic classic. Railroad ties have been used in landscaping forever because they're heavy, cheap second-hand in some places, and they look sturdy enough to survive anything. That part is true. The problem is they were often treated with creosote, a tar-like wood preservative that contains a nasty mix of chemicals, including compounds linked to skin irritation and long-term health concerns. And that smell? That strong, oily smell some old ties have in hot weather? That is not character. That is exactly why I don't want them anywhere near food crops. The part nobody mentions is that old ties can keep weeping residues for years, especially in heat and rain. If you've got kids harvesting cherry tomatoes off a bed framed with railroad ties, I would rethink that setup fast. Personally, I wouldn't use these even for ornamentals near high-traffic areas. Now, the next one is where things get more common and, in my opinion, more frustrating because people still recommend it like it's no big deal. Number 5 is pressure-treated lumber from the wrong era, the hidden carryover. Let me back up for a second because this one matters. Modern pressure-treated lumber sold in the U.S. for residential use is different from the older stuff. Today, you'll usually see treatments like ACQ or CA, alkaline copper quaternary and copper azoy, instead of the older CCA, which stands for chromated copper arsenate. CCA was phased out for most residential use back in the early 2000s, but that does not mean old boards vanished. They're still sitting in piles, barns, fence tear-outs, and salvage yards. Here's what most people miss. If you don't know exactly what that old treated lumber is, don't use it for a food bed. Period. The bargain disappears the second you have to rebuild the bed and replace the soil. Okay, this next one. I have a lot to say about this because it gets treated like some clever upcycling hack. Number 4 is old composite decking, the mystery blend. People see composite decking and think, no rot, no splinters, low maintenance. Perfect raised bed material. Sometimes newer food-adjacent uses may be less concerning than older scrap, but old decking is where I get cautious fast. Composite boards are usually a mix of plastic and wood fiber, and with older material you may have no idea what additives, stabilizers, pigments, or recycled content went into it. Some of that material was designed for foot traffic, not constant wet soil contact on the inside face of a vegetable bed. Here's the trick: heat matters. A dark gray or brown composite bed wall in full sun can get hot, and that repeated heat and moisture cycle is not something I want to gamble on around food crops unless the product is clearly rated and documented. And honestly, most salvaged pieces come with zero paperwork. That alone is enough for me to pass. But number 3 is the one I teased earlier, and this is the one I'd stop using immediately if food safety is your goal. Number 3 is pallet wood, the free bed disaster. I know. People love pallets. They're free, they're easy to find, and there are 1,000 online tutorials showing pallet raised beds, pallet compost bins, pallet fences, pallet everything. Here's the problem. You often do not know where that pallet came from, what it carried, what it absorbed, or how it was treated. Some pallets are heat treated, which is generally less concerning, but others may be chemically treated, contaminated by spills, or just filthy from industrial use. And even a heat-treated pallet may have spent 3 years under leaking drums, pesticides, solvents, or who knows what else. The part nobody mentions is that the wood itself can be splintered, thin, and short-lived, so you're taking contamination risk for a material that may only last 2 to 4 seasons. Free is expensive when the cost is uncertainty. I don't use pallet wood for food beds, full stop. Hey, quick pause. If you're getting value from this, smash that like button. It helps more root keepers find this channel. And tell me in the comments, what material did you use for your first raised bed? I genuinely want to know. All right, let's keep going. Number 2 is galvanized metal with questionable coatings, the rust and runoff gamble. Now, let me be careful here. A lot of people use modern galvanized steel raised beds and have no obvious problems. Some are well made and can be a solid option. But not all galvanized products are equal, especially if you're using old corrugated roofing, salvaged livestock panels, or unknown metal sheeting from the back of somebody's property. Galvanizing usually means a zinc coating, and zinc itself is not some cartoon villain, but heavy wear, corrosion, and unknown old coatings can introduce more uncertainty than people realize. Here's what most people miss. Older metal materials may also have paints, sealants, or residues from past uses you know nothing about. If you're buying a purpose-built, food-safe metal bed from a reputable company, that's one thing. If you're turning random rusty sheet metal into a lettuce box because it was free, that's another. And now, number 1. This is, in my opinion, the raised bed material that creates the biggest false sense of safety because it looks natural and harmless, while carrying one of the dirtiest histories. Number 1 is treated landscape timbers, the backyard arsenic ? These things were everywhere for years, around flower beds, play areas, retaining edges, and yes, vegetable gardens. They look rustic, they stack easily. They're often still sold secondhand or sitting around older properties. But many old landscape timbers were treated with chemicals meant to resist rot and insects, not protect food-growing soil. That can include older preservative systems you absolutely do not want near edible crops. Here's what most people miss. People see weathered brown wood and assume the danger is gone because it looks old. No. Age can actually mean more breakdown, more cracking, and more direct soil contact. I've removed enough old timbers to know I don't trust them. If I don't know the treatment history, they don't go anywhere near tomatoes, carrots, strawberries, or herbs. Done. Now for that bonus tip, because this is what I recommend if you want safer raised beds without overcomplicating everything. Use known materials, not mystery materials. That sounds simple because it is. Untreated cedar, untreated redwood if you can get it. Food-safe metal beds from reputable suppliers, concrete block used correctly, or rot-resistant lumber you bought new and can identify. Those are the kinds of materials I trust more. A basic untreated cedar 2x10 may cost more up front, maybe $25 to $35 depending on where you live, but if it gives you 7 to 10 years of use and peace of mind, that's cheap compared to rebuilding contaminated beds later. I switched to this mindset a long time ago, and honestly, it removed a lot of guesswork from my whole garden. So there you have it. 7 raised bed materials that can put chemicals or questionable residues right where you're trying to grow clean food. Here's what I want you to do. Pick one raised bed this week and identify exactly what it's made from. Just one. If you can't clearly say what the material is and where it came from, put that bed on your upgrade list. Start there. If this helped you, share it with someone who's building raised beds out of whatever they found behind the garage. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button. We're building something here. Tell me in the comments, what material do you trust most for raised beds, and which one would you never use again? Keep growing deep. I'll see you in the next one.